When the sailors found out that Zarathustra was on board, thanks to a man who had come from the Happy Isles, everyone was curious and eager to know more. But Zarathustra stayed silent for 2 days, completely shut off by his sadness. He didn't respond to anyone's questions or glances. On the evening of the second day, he started listening again, even though he still didn't say anything. The ship had traveled far and had an even longer journey ahead, and there were plenty of strange and dangerous stories to hear. Zarathustra had a soft spot for people who took long voyages and embraced danger. And as he listened, something in him shifted, and finally, he spoke. To all of you bold travelers and adventurers, and to everyone who has set sail across treacherous seas with clever, skillful hands, to you who love mysteries, who thrive in twilight, and whose souls are drawn by the sound of flutes to every risky, dangerous gulf, because you hate fumbling cautiously in the dark, and where you can sense the way, you despise overthinking. I'm telling this enigma to you alone, the vision I saw as the loneliest one. Not long ago, I walked through a dark twilight, the kind of gloom that's the color of death. I walked silently, and seriously, my lips pressed tight. It felt like more than one sun had set for me. I followed a steep, lonely path through rocky terrain, a path so barren that not even a single plant or shrub grew along it. The mountain trail crunched under my feet, daring me to keep climbing. I marched silently over the mocking sound of pebbles beneath me, crushing loose stones underfoot. I pushed my way upward, despite the force pulling me down towards the abyss. It was the spirit of gravity, my greatest enemy, my demon. Upward, even though it felt like a dwarf was clinging to me, dragging me down. It paralyzed me, dripping lead into my ear, weighing down my thoughts with every step. "Oh, Zarathustra," it whispered mockingly, drawing out every syllable. "You stone of wisdom, you threw yourself high, but every stone that's thrown must fall. Zarathustra, you stone of wisdom, you slingshot, you destroyer of stars. You threw yourself so high, but every stone must fall back to the ground. You're your own enemy, and now your stone is coming back to hit you." Then, the dwarf went silent. But the silence weighed heavily on me. Being stuck with that creature was lonelier than being completely alone. I kept climbing, dreaming, and thinking, but everything felt like a burden. I felt like someone sick, tortured by bad dreams, waking from one nightmare only to fall into another. But inside me, I have something I call courage. It's always defeated my despair. This courage made me stop and say, "Dwarf, it's either you or me." Because courage is the greatest slayer, courage that strikes first. In every attack, there's a note of triumph. Humans are the most courageous animals. That's why we've conquered every other creature. We've overcome pain with triumph, but human pain is still the deepest of all. Courage kills even the dizziness we feel standing at the edge of the abyss. And where don't we stand at the edge of an abyss? Even seeing the world clearly feels like looking into an abyss. Courage is the greatest slayer. It even kills compassion. Compassion is the deepest abyss, because the more deeply we look into life, the more deeply we see suffering. But courage that attacks, kills even death. It says, "Was that life? Well then, let's do it again." He who has ears to hear, let him hear. 2. "Stop, dwarf," I said. "It's either me or you. But I'm the stronger one here. You don't know the depth of my thoughts. You wouldn't be able to handle them." Then something happened that made me feel lighter. The dwarf, that sneaky little creature, jumped off my shoulder and sat down on a rock in front of me. Right there at that moment, we had stopped in front of a gateway. "Look at this gateway, dwarf," I continued. "It has 2 faces. 2 roads meet here, and no one has ever seen where they end. This long path behind us, it stretches out for an eternity. And that road ahead, that's another eternity. They're opposites, these 2 roads, yet they meet here, at this very gateway. And written above this gateway is the name, this moment." But tell me, dwarf, if you were to follow these roads further and further, do you really think they would keep going in opposite directions forever? "All straight lines lie," the dwarf muttered, scornful. "Truth is always twisted. Time itself is a circle. You spirit of gravity. I snapped. Don't take this lightly, or I'll leave you here, Haltfoot, sitting on your rock while I carried you so high. Look closer, I said. This moment, from this gateway, this very moment, a long, eternal path stretches backward. Behind us lies an eternity. If anything can happen, hasn't it already happened? If anything can run its course, hasn't it already done so? And if everything has already existed, what do you think about this very moment, dwarf? Hasn't this gateway already existed too? Isn't everything connected in such a way that this moment pulls all future things along with it? Doesn't it pull itself forward too? For everything that can happen must happen once more in this long path ahead of us. And this slow spider crawling in the moonlight, and this very moonlight itself, and you and I, here in this gateway, whispering about eternal things. Haven't we all been here before? And won't we all return, running down that strange long path ahead of us? Don't we all have to come back forever? That's what I said, my voice growing quieter, because I was afraid of my own thoughts, afraid of the thoughts coming up behind them. Then suddenly, I heard a dog howling nearby. Had I ever heard a dog howl like that? My mind raced back. Yes, when I was a child long ago. Back then, I heard a dog howl like this. I saw it too, its hair bristling, its head raised toward the sky, trembling in the stillness of midnight, when even dogs believe in ghosts. It made me feel sorry for it. The full moon had just passed over the house, quiet as death. It had stopped, glowing like a fiery orb, resting on the flat roof as if it belonged to someone. The dog was terrified by that. Dogs believe in thieves and ghosts. And now, hearing that same howl, I felt sorry for the dog again. Where was the dwarf? Where was the gateway? The spider? All the whispering? Had I been dreaming? Or had I woken up? Suddenly, I found myself standing alone among rugged rocks, under the strangest moonlight. But there was a man lying there, and the dog, jumping, bristling, whining, it saw me approaching. It howled again, and then it cried out. Had I ever heard a dog cry for help like that? And what I saw next, I had never seen before. A young shepherd, writhing, choking, trembling, his face twisted with pain, and a heavy black serpent hanging from his mouth. Had I ever seen such disgust and horror on someone's face? Maybe he had fallen asleep, and the serpent crawled into his throat, where it bit down and wouldn't let go. I grabbed the serpent, pulling and pulling, but it wouldn't come out. Then something inside me screamed, "Bite! Bite it off! Bite its head off!" That scream came from deep inside me. My fear, my hatred, my disgust, my pity, all of it shouted out in one voice. You daring ones around me, you risk-takers and adventurers, and all of you who sail through uncharted waters, you lovers of mysteries, solve this riddle for me. Explain the vision I saw as the loneliest one, because it was a vision, a glimpse of the future. What did I witness as a symbol? And who is destined to come someday? Who is the shepherd with the serpent crawling into his mouth? Who is the one into whose throat all the heaviest and darkest things will crawl? But the shepherd did as I screamed. He bit down hard. He spat the head of the serpent far away and jumped up. No longer a shepherd, no longer a man. He was a transformed being, surrounded by light, and he laughed. No human on earth has ever laughed like that. Oh, my brothers, I heard a laugh that wasn't human, and now I feel a thirst gnawing at me, a longing that will never be satisfied. That laughter gnaws at me. How can I keep living? And how could I bear to die right now? Thus spoke Zarathustra.